Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Redskins Talk TV. This is your host, Dre. I just come off a very tumultuous week, losing to the then 1-8 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then, of course, you have a whole bunch of shit that happened with the press conference afterwards with Robert Griffin III. A lot of people felt like he threw the team members under the bus. And for me, I don't have a problem with what he said, primarily because, in truth, the quarterback can only do so much for the team, and the quarterback alone did not lose this game. When you're looking at the fact that we got torched by a rookie wide receiver, that's not the quarterback's fault. I want to go into a long, blown-out tirade about that, simply because what's done is done. They beat us. They're 2-8. We're 3-7. Around the same time last year, we're looking at the same situation. And the ironic thing about it is, going into this game against the San Francisco 49ers, the records are exactly the same as they were last season, where they were 6-4 and we were 3-7. So with this game right here, when it comes to the X's and O's, I want to talk about the things that we need to do on offense, defense, special team. That's normally how I break it down each and every week. So let me go ahead and get with this. Now, as far as our offense, we need to have solid play from the offensive line. There's absolutely no doubt about that, because when you look at the pass rush for the San Francisco 49ers, they can rush 5 guys, they can rush 4 guys, and they tend to get pressure on the opposing quarterback. What we need to do is get RG3 out of the pocket, but we need solid play from the offensive line. And most importantly, we need to establish a run game and get Alfred Morris moving with the ball in his hands. I would love to see my man Alfred get 100 yards rushing at least one time this season. I know that defense for the 49ers is very staunch, so we have to keep chipping away at it, because the longer they play on the field, they get gassed, they start making mistakes. Alfred Morris is bound to break a long one. But solid play for the offensive line, which will allow for Alfred Morris to do his thing. And if the offensive line can open holes for him, hopefully they can pass block and protect RG3. At the same time, RG3 is going to have to make sure that he's making his reads, eliminate mistakes. But at the same time, it's kind of hard to do when you have an offensive lineman being pushed in your face, or you get a blown block from the tight end, the running back, fullback, offensive lineman. But RG3, he still has to make his plays, solid plays, without throwing any interceptions, or on occasion overthrowing the receiver, because once again, you have the speed of Deshaun Jackson, but with that big arm for RG3, he needs to put a little bit more touch on those passes so that he drops right in the basket for anyone that's running those deep routes. Now, as far as the running game, once again, Alfred Morris has to play a solid game, keep the ball in hand, keep it, nice and high, protect the ball, running through the trenches. Hopefully he can get to that second level to where he's got to get tackled by linebacker, or better yet, a safety. Once we establish that running game, it's going to cause the safeties to come up to the line of scrimmage, force man-on-man coverage with the wide receivers, so that way Garcon and Jackson can hopefully win that matchup. I think Jordan Reed is going to be out for this game, so it's going to be the responsibility of Niles Paul and Logan Paulson to step up and do their thing. Niles Paul, great pass catcher, not so great as a blocker, so really need for him to have a solid game, especially when it comes to the passing game. And I think he'll do well with that. But, they have good linebackers, good sideline-to-sideline pursuit. So, yeah, Patrick Willis, Bowman is out, Navarro Bowman, he's going to be out. But Patrick Willis and gang, really solid tacklers, very heady players that understand and how to read offensive plays. So, need for a little bit of trickery with the play calling from Jay Gruden, in order to maximize the abilities of what RG3 can do. The offenses are kind of similar, with the read option being taken into consideration. However, trying to make the quarterbacks pocket passers, which I see happening with Colin Kaepernick. So they're not having the stellar season, even though they have a pretty good record compared to ours. But when you look at some of the games in which they've lost, and some of the criticism that Kaepernick has drawn, because when you look at when back in 2012, when Kaepernick hit the scene and took the job away from Alex Smith, he was running all over the place, and you really don't see that a lot. And that's the same thing with RG3. It's not so much about the injuries. Everyone wants to blow things out of proportion about RG3 getting out of the pocket. And the moment that he does, people start commenting about his health. Running quarterbacks tend to draw a lot more criticism simply because it's open game once they get out of the pocket. But RG3 is no different when it comes to the running game as opposed to Colin Kaepernick or Russell Wilson or any other scrambling quarterback. The only thing is because he had the ankle injury this season, everyone is saying he's quote-unquote injury prone. But when you're looking at one injury that happened his rookie season, nothing really happening his sophomore season, now he's got third year midway under his belt. He had basically 2 major injuries in 3 years. Nothing that's kept him out of the game. Yes, he came back in quick, and the second season it didn't look too great. He didn't have that mobility because he had that brace. All the same, he's doing his thing. Back to the game, though. Deshaun Jackson, I think he's going to create a matchup nightmare for whoever's covering him at the cornerback position. However, a lot of teams are starting to play safeties deep. That way, they're not getting beat on that deep play. Deshaun Jackson, he can still make things happen. Also need for Pierre Garçon to open things up. I really hope they don't get into this habit. I'm talking about the Redskins offense of throwing a lot of checkdowns. I know it helps to establish the confidence. If the play is there, do it. But when it comes to the screen plays in particular, because our blockers are not sustaining the blocks and the resulting play, really nothing happens, with the exception of Roy Hilo getting that 35-yard touchdown last week. But most times we don't really get the kind of chunk yardage, I'm going to call it, when we have those screen plays, primarily because our blockers are not sustaining the blocks. Defenders are swimming around them, and they're able to make the plays for a short gain or no gain or a loss. So really need solid play from the offense. Now, as far as the defense, it's going to be a nightmare because the San Francisco 49ers are stacked with offense. You have Vernon Davis, one of my favorite players at the tight end position because he's from the University of Maryland. Yeah, Maryland. Still got that top end speed as a tight end. So he's going to create a nightmare matchup with the linebackers and the safeties. So they have to play him deep. He's a very physical runner and pass catcher. So playing him as he gets off the line of scrimmage, that's going to be crucial. Also, when you have the likes of Anquan Bolden, not a speed-burning, running kind of wide receiver, but the venerable Anquan Bolden, he's got solid hands, outstanding route running, and he's tough once he gets the ball, tough to tackle. So whoever's going to be covering him, once he gets the ball in his hands, they're going to have to basically bully him because Anquan Bolden is not an easy target to bring down once he gets the ball in his hands. And then on the other side, you have Michael Crabtree, a fairly dynamic player. I think if you play him tight, he'll disappear from the offense. And then you have the other wide receiver. I can't remember his name, but he'll come into the mix. And then whoever else they have at the wide receiver position. Then, of course, you have Frank Gore, still for his age, a solid running back, can make things happen. They have a pretty decent offensive line, although with some stunting plays, some more exotic blitzes, they can be outmatched as far as their offensive line. The only thing is, with our defense being able to play up at the line of scrimmage, playing tight, being able to jam the wide receivers, we really need for Emerson and Breland to do that against whoever they have at the wide receiver position. Anquan Bolden and Crabtree are going to be the flankers. They might rely more on any wide receiver in the slot. So we're going to have to use our nickel corners to play tight with that. Also, being able to get pressure on Kaepernick, he adds that extra element because he can run and will run, especially when he sees the opportunity. So getting that pressure up the middle and not allowing for a lane to open up, we're really going to need for our defensive linemen and Kerrigan and Gang to apply that pressure. Hopefully, Keenan Robinson will be able to get into the backfield to harass Kaepernick, but he's a very shifty and elusive runner if we can get him, because I watched the game footage and he can be tackled for a loss. He can be sacked, but he's so elusive. So not overcommitting and taking bad angles. That's what's going to be important for our pass rushers to get to Kaepernick and create some plays that force errant throws. And then, of course, our special teams. They've really stepped up the past couple weeks. That's the only thing where I haven't been overly critical ever since the beginning of the season, because our special team, they are playing more solid, even though I would still like for Andre Roberts to get up the field, get more positive yards, stop trying to juke and jive, make things happen, a little bit of misdirection, but not running laterally to where he's basically standing still while the defenders are closing in on him. And then, of course, our coverage team is going to have to play solid. They got a lot of good players on the 49ers roster, tons of talent and weapons on offense. It's not going to be an easy game by any stretch of the imagination. We're playing at their house, so the whole time zone change and everything, the jet lag, that may or may not play into consideration. This is football, so it's just a matter of preparation. But good play calling from Jay Gruden and gang, solid play calling from Hassel on defense. Don't know what happened to the blitzing, whereas we did it against Tony Romo and the Dallas Cowboys, and we veered away from that, and it's like night and day, where we're not able to get to the quarterback. That was apparently true last week with McCown, where we didn't really get that many hits on him, didn't get any sacks, and if we did, not many at all. But all the same, it's going to be a very, very tough game. I'm not the type of person that's going to call the score. It's going to be a challenge, but on any given Sunday, the game can be won or lost. It's a matter of turnovers. If we can get some turnovers, if we can get that pressure on Kaepernick, it could be the difference between us walking out of that stadium with a victory or another loss under our belt. So we'll see how things go. But anyway, for our Redskins fans, go ahead and leave your comments, share your opinion, and to my Redskins family, hail to the Redskins.